Welcome to Public House, intimate conversations with people making a difference in the Hudson Valley. And now from Paula's Public House in Poughkeepsie, here's Paula Young.
Hi, I'm Paula Young, and welcome to Public House. Today, I cannot tell you how excited and happy I am to have Sean Patrick Maloney sitting in my chair. Welcome.
Thanks.
Welcome to Public House.
Thank you.
So, you've been in the political business now for 5 years very successfully. You represent the 18th Congressional District, and you just won re-election most recently, and you do a lot of great things. Tell me about you. Tell me about who you are, why you are.
Well, I'm the last of 6 kids in a small Irish Catholic family. My dad sold insurance. My mom stayed at home, raised us kids. We are 5 brothers and 1 sister. My sister has a very serious developmental disability, so she needed a lot of special care. So, my mom and dad worked pretty hard to keep us all out of trouble and on the up and up. I like to say that they were able to send 5 of us to college on 1 income. In a middle class family now can't send 1 kid to college on 2 incomes, and they were great parents. And my dad passed away a couple of years ago. My mom's still doing well. She's 87 years old, lives by herself, does pretty well. They were just middle-class folks. My dad served in the Navy, was pretty seriously banged up on the USS Manchester in 1946 on his 19th birthday, and very nearly killed. A friend of his working, I believe, was killed, although it was hard to get him to talk about it. He never talked about his military service. But they believed in this country, and they raised us to, be patriotic and go to church and work hard and all the good stuff that I think built the country. And I try to bring that work ethic and those values to my public service.
So how did you go from the private sector, where you were very successful, and then leap over because of that correct upbringing that taught you to give back?
Well, I think my folks would tell you that I was always interested in things that were bigger than me. That I'm interested in history, and I'm interested in how change happens in politics and legislation and things that relate to making the world better, making our country better. I was always more interested in that than just making money. My dad was very worried about money his whole life. He had to be. His dad, was in debt, and he had to grow up at a young age. And my dad ended up being pretty successful, but worked his heart out his whole life. When I ran for Congress, he said, leave it to one of my kids to figure out a way to take more grief and make less money.
Yeah.
But he was proud of what I was able to do in politics. But for him, your number one responsibility was providing for your family. So I tried to work in the private sector for enough years to be able to do that. But my heart, I think, was always elsewhere in terms of the work I'm doing now.
So let's talk about the work you're doing now. I know you're very interested in the environment. I know you're very interested in seniors. I know you're very interested in the things that matter to people's daily life.
Right.
So let's talk about some of the things that you're trying to get started right now.
Sure. Well, there's a lot. I mean, unfortunately, you don't hear a lot about things that matter to people, right?
That's right.
Coming out of Washington, you hear a lot about fighting and other nonsense. But I always felt there's so much we could agree on that if we just started with that. I tell the story about I approached Congress the way I approached Thanksgiving dinner. I said this at another event this morning. You can go to Thanksgiving dinner and you can start a fight pretty easy, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Your in-laws are there, or that brother owes you money, or whatever it is. Or you can talk about the great times you had as kids, and you can talk about the things that bring you together as a family. It's a choice you make. And if you start out with what divides you, you can spend all your time doing that. Washington's exactly the same way. So one of the reasons I've been able to pass 25 bills in my 4 years in Congress, which is pretty good, by the way, for somebody who's pretty new and in the minority party, it's because I'm working with people and I'm focused on things like Lyme disease in our area, which is a terrible problem, or helping our veterans, which is not a Democratic or Republican issue, or things like infrastructure. I'm very worried about our trains and making them safer. We've had too many accidents and lost too many neighbors to grade crossing accidents and to derailments, which we can prevent.
Yes.
There never has to be a derailment or a grade crossing accident. We have the technology to stop that. Also with the oil trains, by the way, these same issues are very important on the west side of the Hudson. So those are the areas I've focused on. Things like education, things like, the things that matter in people's lives. Student loan debt is killing so many middle-class families and slowing so many kids down, starting their own lives. there's a lot of work to do, and that's where my focus has been. So,
well, you're taking a page from the Europeans, because we basically, once cars became popular, we put all our monies towards that industry versus looking at public transportation and trains. Europe, it's all trains.
Right.
So the safety mechanisms that are there somehow should be here but aren't.
Right. Well, we are well past the point where we can use GPS and Wi-Fi technology to know where every train is at every moment, how fast it's going. Derailments only happen for one reason. It's because the train is going too fast.
Exactly.
And that is always because there's a problem with the way it's being operated. There's no reason we have to rely only on that. And we can do a lot better on our railroading practices and simple stuff like having somebody else in the engineer compartment during a high hazard turn. But honestly, the technology can stop the train, and it can stop the train when something's in the track before the human eye can see it.
Exactly.
And that's the difference between stopping and having a close call and having a disaster.
Exactly.
That's what happened in Valhalla a couple of years
Yes.
ago. We see this on the freight trains,
It
the oil
happened in
trains.
Cold Spring also, well, outside of the Manhattan area, where a gentleman from Cold Spring, a
That's
neighbor
right.
of ours, actually.
Yeah, in Spite and Dival, we lost 4 of our neighbors there. One of those folks was a guy named Jim Lovell, who
Yes.
whose kids go to school with mine in Cold
Yes.
Spring. His wife actually
Nancy's a
works
friend
for me.
of ours, yes, she's
Yeah,
wonderful.
and wonderful family, and they suffered a terrible tragedy. And
Let's
we
talk-
don't need to have that happen. And I want to
agree.
tell I want to tell folks watching, we have passed legislation, and we have opened up finally federal financing. I've done this since I've been in Congress that will fix that problem. Metro North right now is installing this technology I'm talking about. It's called positive train control, and it will be in place within about a year,
That's
year and a
amazing.
half, and
That's great.
that'll get done. And we've also renewed the federal support for grade crossing improvements so we can stop those accidents. So
That's great.
there are things we can get done if we work together.
If we work together. Quickly about the seniors. We are aging the population pyramid. There are going to be more of us that are older than younger these days. And yet it seems like a lot of lip service towards retirees and what they're doing and threatening to do with the health system and Social Security. A couple quickly, what are your focuses there?
Right. Well, we have a lot of very insecure folks approaching retirement. They haven't been able to save the way they know they should. There's good reasons for that, by the way. It's because their wages have been flat for years, and because their kids have so much student loan debt. Sometimes they've had to pay a lot more for their kids' education, and then they themselves are on the hook for the debt. So we have a real danger that we are going to have a generation, the baby boom generation, that is not set up for retirement.
Correct.
That's why these programs like Medicare and Social Security are more important than ever. And it's important to remind folks that you've paid into them.
That's
this
right.
is not some charity they're giving
Not
you.
at all.
This is your money.
Yes.
And this is a social contract we have. I believe we can strengthen and preserve those programs forever. We also have to help people save for retirement. By the way, the biggest thing we can do to help, particularly millennials, in addition to their student loan debt, is to help them get into their own home that they own sooner. Now that doesn't mean buying a home you can't afford or going down the subprime mortgage
people
road.
to not carry
But-
debt in this country.
But that's where wealth is
Yes,
created for the middle
yes,
class. I have
absolutely.
a plan for doing that, because intelligent, responsible home ownership is the number one way people build wealth over time.
Right, I agree. And not having debt, not carrying debt, which
Yeah.
we do. Anyhow, and we're coming to a close of my time. I ask everyone the same question at the end of the interview. When you wake up in the morning and you see the light, what makes your heart beat? What makes you sing? What makes you get up?
Oh, come on. I think like most people, my kids are the way I start my day. Every day I'm home, I walk them to the school bus. I'm about the only parent walking a 14 and 16-year-old to the school bus, probably. I have an older son, too, who's moved to L.A. with his girlfriend. I think I like to tell people that I measure my work in Congress against the time I'm missing with my kids. I want the work to justify in some way that time away. And I think that's a good way to look at it, because it raises the bar on
Yes.
when we're wasting time in Washington. I see it as time I'm missing with them. They're not going to be young
Time
much
we're never
longer,
going to
so-
get back, and leaving the
Right.
better tomorrow for them.
So that's what gets me out of bed.
Good to know. Thank you so much.
Thank
This
you,
was
Paula.
amazing. I hope we get opportunity to talk again.
like
Thank you
that.
so much for tuning in, and I will see you soon. Thank you. That was wonderful. Hi, I'm Paula Young, and I'm the proprietor here of Paula's Public House. Do join me any day of the week except for Sunday for good food, good cheer, and good fellowship. We are here, we have fun, and we'd love to have you be a part of it. Come on down.